Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome WikiLeaks founder and editor-in-chief, Mr. Julian Assange, on the line with us, live in Beirut. Mr. Assange, how are you?
I'm okay. I mean, the situation for me is normalized, other than the new change, which is the cutoff of the internet itself.
You know, when we stated that we were going to have this discussion, there was an avalanche of tweets and posts. There have been so many rumors about, statements that state you are dead. Why haven't you made an appearance on the balcony? Why haven't they restored your internet? And specifically, the PGB signatures on the data that are being released. Is there authentication? What's going on? So can you please, for our audience, state where you are, how you're doing, and address those rumors today once and for all?
I doubt anything I say here is going to put an end to the rumors. It's very natural that they have come about because of my high visibility in the last few months in the United States. And there's a very large movement of young American people who have been reading our material and feel close to us as a result, and who are concerned about what has happened to me. And as far as is concerned, perceptually, I've disappeared, although respected reporters who are friends of mine, like John Pilger, have even done video interviews with me late last month. That's not enough to put the rumors to bed.
Is there a reason you're not making those appearances on the balcony at the Ecuadorian embassy anymore? Or you haven't done so in the last few months?
Well, we set a precedent. This is a general problem for anyone from me to Saeed Nasrallah, who is in a situation where they have powerful adversaries, which is that you can potentially in the future be in a very difficult situation, and the same for the rest of my staff. But we set a precedent about how we deal with such things, and it's not an acceptable precedent to have to make a appearance where there's all sorts of security to do, like on the balcony.
Right.
That can't be done. That can't be done all the time. It could be done once.
So
it's
people
not
will tell.
It can be done all the time.
People will tell in time.
We have to set precedents.
Okay.
Which are reliable and repeatable, and the best reliable and repeatable medium to make sure that some political figure in a situation like mine or a situation like Nasrallah's is that they do live interactive video.
Right.
That's the most reliable method. So that's a method that we want to see. We don't want to create some kind of false relief with simpler methods.
In terms of proof that this is truly live, this has not been pre-recorded, can we state something, a piece of news? Fidel Castro has just...
Fidel Castro, I understand, has just died, a titanic figure, loved and reviled, who said that WikiLeaks was his favorite website, and is a great reader of our diplomatic material.
All right. I want to start for our audience, we just watched a report to see how WikiLeaks came into prominence, basically, and all the different ups and downs that you've been through that has landed you in the Ecuadorian embassy in London today. Is that, in fact, where you are?
There is no change, yes. Okay. I still have asylum at the Embassy of Ecuador.
All right.
Thanks to the support of the Ecuadorian people and the Ecuadorian state.
All right. In a recent interview, the most recent interview we have is the one with John Pilger, the one where you talked about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. You also mentioned that WikiLeaks has never gotten it wrong. There's never been anything released that has been disputed. And my question to you is, how do you know when somebody isn't sending you fake information? Has it ever happened? How do you, because we know that WikiLeaks does never reveal the source, most of the time doesn't even know the source according to your claims, but how do you know that the information, how do you go about making sure the information is factual and accurate?
Well, you should understand that my background is as a cryptographer and security engineer, so on the technical side, we're very good at forensics. In fact, I don't believe there's any organization that's better at digital forensics, certainly no police service in the world. But then we have a political understanding, and so that's understanding the how and the means and the motive that can go towards producing fabrication, the economic costs of fabrications, and then checking through secondary sources, of which we have many. So it's a science and it's an art to get it right. We've gotten it right 100% of the time over the past 10 years. And it's a record that we're proud of.
Right. A very famous quote of yours, and we're going to get into this right now because I know it's what a lot of people want to know, is you've said, "I'm a combative person and I like crushing bastards." And do you view the United States today one of those, or Hillary Clinton to be specific?
Well, definitely not the United States. The United States has a lot going for it. And the same is true for any country and any people. If you're talking about particular people or particular groupings, sure, there's bad people as well as good people.
But not the United States. Okay, shall we say the United States government or the Washington establishment, perhaps?
No, even within the United States government, even within parts of the establishment. I mean, let's look at where most of our sources come from. They come from within these establishments. If you look at even the US military, which I understand is not viewed too favorably within Lebanon, US military at the non-political level is essentially comprised of people of an engineering mindset. There's a lot of logistics involved, and even many of the soldiers are basically death engineers. I mean, that's the same sort of mindset where people are fairly straight up. You know, they're fairly honest, and they don't like dishonesty.
What about
at the top? It's different, and they also have 27.
What about Hillary Clinton?
Spin masters. Hillary Clinton. She represents what is still the dominant establishment faction within the United States, and in some ways her broader network is a fluid or a glue which sticks together important, powerful factions within the United States, from banking to diplomacy to the military. From a Lebanese perspective, probably the greatest concern would be that she's very close to Saudi Arabia, the network, and it's had a disproportionate influence over, in my view, over her policies that she has pursued or promised to pursue.
It's in the past there have been, she's come out publicly and said that WikiLeaks presents a danger to the United States and to partners of the United States. And, I want to talk a little bit about...
A threat to the whole international community is what I believe.
Right, and I want to talk about what we saw in this report. There was that excerpt of yours talking about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in the U.S. elections. And part of what happened before the Democratic National Convention, the leaks and the Podesta emails that basically showed that the Clinton campaign was sabotaging her rival Bernie Sanders in order to clinch the nomination, which she did, eventually leading to cutting this internet of yours. Ecuador itself releasing a statement saying, we don't meddle with US elections, we do not want to influence the US elections, therefore we have cut the internet. However, now the US elections have been over for over 2 weeks and a half, and the internet is still cut. My question is, on the one hand, Ecuador cutting the internet is basically saying, all right, freedom of speech is limited here, which is what you stand for. And two, they're basically acknowledging the importance and the influence of WikiLeaks in its ability to actually influence an American election. So why still cut, one, and two, there you go, WikiLeaks again put on the world stage to show that it is probably one of the most influential organizations out there.
Yes, Ecuador cut the internet connection here unilaterally and without telling me what was going on. Now, there have been reports in NBC, which is an American TV outlet, of pressure on Ecuador from the United States. Ecuador denies that there is pressure. We also have reports of pressure on Ecuador, but perhaps it's ultimately a domestic issue. I'm not sure.
Do you know if they will come back soon? Have they told you when, if?
They have not. They released a statement last night publicly in Spanish saying that they would soon, over the next few days, determine whether it is to be permanent or not.
Do you know why they would do that? Why they would cut the internet?
I'm sympathetic to a degree for what was happening in the election. I'm not at all sympathetic for what's happening now. During the election, let's look at it this way. The Ecuadorian national election is in February. The United States historically has interfered with the CIA, USAID, etc. in Latin America in a very serious manner. Ecuador has a population of 16 million people. It's a tough country, but it's a small country. And it wouldn't want to legitimize any precedent that could be claimed erroneously in this case, but nonetheless could lead to claims where, say, Hillary Clinton, if she had become president, could interfere in the Ecuadorian election through her intelligence services.
Do you think Ecuador was backing her, maybe? The Ecuadorian president, the country, backing Hillary Clinton, perhaps, and there was pressure to cut the internet?
Ecuador wouldn't like a situation where there could be any claim by the United States that interference in Ecuador or its neighbors is legitimized because the media in the United States are talking about me and WikiLeaks interfering in the US election. So I think that's very understandable. Then, of course, there's a question about what do you do about it, which we have some disagreements on.
Right.
Because it is the duty of journalists, if you like, to interfere during an electoral process. That is the electoral process. We don't publish from Ecuador. We publish from France and Germany and so on. The only connection WikiLeaks has to Ecuador is that I am a political refugee in Ecuador.
And you're not afraid...
Attempted squeeze on WikiLeaks by squeezing Ecuador. Of course, we have and had the necessary contingency plans to deal with exactly that situation. So it didn't pause our publishing for a single day.
But you're not concerned that the refugee status or asylum status that you seek will end soon? This is not a concern of yours in the present?
Well, not from the present government. Half the Ecuadorian opposition, but I stress only half, have made electoral commitments to end the asylum.
All right. I want to ask one more thing, and then we'll get to an audience question. Usually, you publish information you're sent. There's a submission platform. Sources are able to send leaks, and then you publish them. You've said that you usually publish what you get. In an interview, you've also said, we haven't received anything regarding the Trump campaign. And you've submitted a lot of information against Hillary Clinton, which could lead different people to assume that, again, you perhaps were backing Trump. He did go on to win. Whether or not it was a reason or an influence of WikiLeaks is yet to be seen, but people would say it did influence the outcome of the election. But when as a journalist, when you receive this information about one candidate and nothing on the other, and you put that information out there, isn't that in itself, in a way, biased or one-sided? I've got something on Clinton, I've got nothing on Trump, let me put it out there. Obviously, especially now, there are rumors that your lawyers are trying to get a pardon from Trump. Doesn't that show in a way that perhaps subconsciously, in a way, WikiLeaks was backing Trump?
No, it doesn't at all. Can you imagine the situation where WikiLeaks would receive information about either of the two candidates, the primary candidates, and not publish it before the election? That would be a violation of all our principles. The public would be deeply angry. The New York Times does stuff like that, for example, censoring the revelation of mass surveillance of Americans across the 2004 election, leading to the re-election of George Bush. We're certainly not going to do anything like that.
All right. Can we get one question from the audience right now? Trying to keep this interactive. Do we have the microphones to go to an audience member, please? Yes.
Good morning, sir. I would like to be brief, and my question regarding identity, you just mentioned Donald Trump is, in terms of his identity as a car salesman, if you will, or a deal man from the 80s, hence his book, The Art of the Deal. But my question is regarding also your identity, sir, in terms of you just built an association with Mr. Nasrallah, who is a dominant figure here in Lebanon and the Middle East. And do you see yourself as a resistance man? And your resistance is exactly against what? And if you can encapsulate that for us.
So do you see
I
yourself
didn't see myself, I believe, in that way. As a result of simply going about publishing true information, and there's no allegation that has survived for more than a few minutes that our information isn't strictly true. Well, there has been a great many attacks on my organization. There has been illegal banking blockades, a grand jury in the United States which has been trying to work out how to imprison me for the last 6 years, and possibly some of our other staff as well. And of course, PR campaigns, intelligence campaigns. The UK government admits to spending more than $20 million on the round-the-clock surveillance of me just by its police services alone in this embassy. So there's a lot to resist simply to keep publishing. And your mind does turn to others who have successfully managed to keep going under a lot of pressure, and Nasrallah is one of those people.
All right. It's interesting because
we don't have a giant subsidy from Iran, however. So he has some breaks.
I don't know if our audience is aware that the UK police has spent over $15 million US, 12.5 million pounds just for the security at the Ecuadorian embassy in the last 4 years to keep an eye on you.
I had reached £12.6 million by October last year. So actually, it's we're
And
up to
that's quite
$20
an
million
extensive
now.
amount when you think about it. You know, this is
Yeah, it's the salary. It's the full-time salary equivalent to 154 police. Full-time.
yeah, you know, and we don't know if they're asking for a raise or not, but that's a lot. There's a lot going on there. Mr. Assange, Sarah Harrison, one of your closest advisors and also an editor at WikiLeaks, wrote an article about 10 days ago titled "Why the World Needs WikiLeaks," where she explains that WikiLeaks shines a light on largely unaccountable networks of power that span countries and industries. And WikiLeaks has been accused of being a pawn of the Russian government, she says. And she's previously stated that the greatest unaccountable power of today is the United States and our Western democracies. What is, you know, because I'm sure you get that a lot, but what is your relationship today with Russia?
There's no relationship. It's as simple as that. And the United States intelligence has admitted repeatedly that they can find no relationship. From James Clapper, the head of the DNI, which is the central body which oversees all U.S. intelligence agencies, to, I'm just trying to think who the other figures are. I can't recall their names, but anyway, the top guy and others have all stated that they can find no relationship between.
Have you released any leaks
Russia.
about Russia that could compromise Russian politics in any way? Maybe the lack of that, you know, could lead somebody to assume all these.
No, well, Americans don't really pay attention to anything that's not in English and in the United States and about the United States. We have released more than 800,000 documents referencing Russia and Vladimir Putin, the majority of which are critical, have gone on to be used in many lawsuits and many critical books. So, it's the usual rubbish.
Have you received
frankly.
any threat the way that you have? Because the United States has definitely, they've had a very off with your head approach when they talk about it in the news and publicly. Have you received anything similar from Russia or heard anything similar?
Yes, there was back in beginning of 2011 or late 2010. There were threatening statements made by Russia.
All right. It's
in response to upcoming publications of the diplomatic cables about Russia.
That when we mentioned that time that you just mentioned, late 2010, early 2011, and I'm going to bring it a bit back to our region here, with Cablegate, the diplomatic cable leak in late 2010, basically embarrassing a lot of diplomats, putting a lot of what was going on in some of these Arab nations out there. I remember reading a specific article that was talking about in Tunisia how the president, Zine Abidine Al Ali, was living this majestically Aladdin-like life, sultan in a palace, and had a pet tiger. And then they were comparing that luxury of life to that of the Tunisian day-to-day man. We're going to talk about Mohammed Bou Azizi, who started this, what was known as the Arab Spring. He had his fruit cart, he couldn't sell fruit, and then he basically set himself ablaze. And there was this whole, what the diplomatic cables revealed in a lot of ways was that we knew this, but then they really put it out there in the media, and every person could access it, is that there was such a big disconnect between the leaders and the people. And a lot of critics say that it didn't, WikiLeaks, the diplomatic cables didn't start the Arab Spring, but it possibly fueled it.
Well, I have written about this in my book, When Google Met WikiLeaks, and perhaps I can just quote that section for you. So Clinton talked about our publications causing tears in the fabric of government. And that's in some ways correct. But the fabric needs to be inflexible for tears to occur in the first place. So that the more authoritarian the government apparatus, or the more hypocritical the government apparatus, the faster those tears appeared. And so that did happen in Tunisia.
An impact of some sort.
Ben Ali's propaganda minister later confessed that our leaks were, quote, the coup de grace, the thing that broke the Ben Ali system.
Which started the Arab
You
Spring.
can also read the writings of Sami Ben Garba, Tunisian, involved in translating our cables to French. So there's 20 days between the publication of our cables and the protests that started in response to the street seller setting himself on fire.
It just goes to show you the importance of media. And, you know, it's funny, we always mention Clinton and, you know, something that has been very discomforting and kind of made a lot of people question in this past month alone is that the media is extremely important, might be the most important influence when it comes to affecting people. In the United States election, and I bring it back to this, before the elections, the media had, probably for the first time in a very long time, endorsed a candidate, Hillary Clinton. A lot of news outlets, news publications were endorsing her. A lot of people made it very clear, polls made it very clear she was going to win. I mean, even when you saw the stage of the her stage at the, in New York, she had the United States staged. Trump had a much more demure stage for his acceptance speech. I don't know if he wasn't expecting to win or not. But how do you explain that the media went to such length to portray Trump as this monstrosity, and the polls had her winning, and everybody had her winning, and even you said in a last interview, Trump would not be allowed to win because banks, foreign power, Wall Street was behind her, and the media was behind her. So how do you explain the role of the media the day after when everybody says, okay, he just won? What was that all about?
Well, Hillary Clinton unified the establishments. I mean, you played a tape before of me saying that I felt sorry for her. I wasn't being ironic or mocking. I genuinely feel personally sorry for someone who really is tormented by their quest for power, and that was before they, ultimately didn't achieve it. The media, yes, she unified the establishments. The figure of Donald Trump made that particularly easy for her because Trump is the anti-establishment candidate, despite himself being from the wealthy New York real estate establishment. He was not connected in a serious way to the Washington, D.C. Political intelligence or diplomatic establishment. So the media were part of that, and in my view acted
but wasn't it almost like a reaction?
A disgraceful way. They acted in a disgraceful way by constantly
so what is the
making
role of the
editorial
media
endorsements
then?
Constantly making editorial endorsements of the candidate. We don't make editorial endorsements. And I reflected on it. I think they felt they were it was a forced position for them to make editorial endorsements of Clinton. Otherwise, they couldn't publish anything about her. Because they'd be subject to so much criticism for publishing information about Clinton. So they had to endorse Clinton in order to be able to safely publish any information that might be viewed as critical of Hillary Clinton. And then, of course, some other publishers simply doing it to gain hopeful preferment for themselves or for their proprietors on her nomination because it was widely viewed that she would be nominated. Sorry, widely viewed that she would be elected.
Can we get a question from the audience? One question, please, if we can get the microphone in so we can keep this going before we get to the next part. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Assange. My name is Sarah El-Yafi. I'm also a political commentator, but very differently from what you do. Two questions for you. The first one is, what do you think of your lawyer, Amal Clooney's work? If you're unable to get a hold of her, surely there's a cousin of hers in the room here, and probably could offer help. And a second one, which is a question that I got a lot, what can a regular person do to help, considering that we're not Pamela Anderson and cannot come with vegan food to you?
Well, no, Pamela's opened every door, it seems. Everyone's heard of her and everyone wants to meet her. So she's a very effective emissary, believe it or not. Amal, well, you know, Amal had a fundraising party with George Clooney for Hillary Clinton twice. Mm-hmm. So Amal hasn't been saying too much about me during the last 4 months. I think she's been keeping her head down. Now that Clinton is not elected, maybe it will be easier for her.
You know, we talk about the role of the media, we talk about how media is changing in the digital age today. Do you think it's changed? You know, when we first talked about leaks back in the 70s with the Pentagon Papers and Daniel Ellsberg, who kind of went out there and, you know, at first was regarded as, you know, somebody who may have committed treason, but then was hailed as a hero and, you know, basically exposing the government at the time about certain lies that had gone forth with the Johnson administration, the Vietnam War. And then, you know, he's fine. He's also today, when people talk about it, regarded as a hero because he was able to kind of get this Transparency Act through. But, you know, when people refer to you, you know, you get anarchist. He's got blood on his hands. He's a terrorist. He's, you know, although your supporters do say you champion freedom of speech and freedom of the press, has anything changed in the role of the media and in the role of the people in their quest for truth from then to now?
Well, I know Daniel Ellsberg very well. He's a personal friend, and he's told me about what had happened to him at the time. It's exactly the same. He had sex allegations. He was alleged to be working for the Russians, and that was put around very, very seriously. So all the same old rubbish was thrown up against Daniel Ellsberg, and it took time for it to disappear. There is a difference, however. The difference is that Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers under the Nixon administration, even though they were mostly about the Johnson administration. They were leaked under the Nixon administration. And so his public battle was with the Nixon administration, which is a Republican administration.
And which proved to have its own problems as well.
The fallout of the Pentagon Papers resulted, well, let's go through it. So in trying to find dirt on Daniel Ellsberg, the Nixon administration raided his psychiatrist's office and rifled through his papers trying to find that dirt. Because of concerns about that, his personal file at his psychiatrist had been put under another name. But they tried to do it, and then the eventual investigation into that led to the discovery of Watergate, which eventually led to the downfall of the Nixon administration. So there's a direct connection there. And so the Democratic Party and Democrat-aligned media are supportive of Ellsberg because they viewed him to be something that was useful in crushing the Republicans. And Democrat-aligned media write more books and produce more history, and also own the New York Times. So, you know, those are the people who write history. So I think it would take us producing extensive leaks under the Trump administration for a similar historical view, perhaps to appear. But I don't think it will ever appear until I or our other staff retire. It's just the nature of the game. If you're involved in revealing embarrassing truths about very powerful actors, of course they have to defend themselves and defend their reputations. And if they can't actually attack the credibility of your material, then they have to attack the personalities and the funding.
It's kind of a scapegoat. They need a scapegoat. You're saying that, you know, somebody to
they need some.
blame.
No, it's just a distraction attempt. I mean, they just need to distract from the core story, which is the revelation of what they're saying about themselves. So they look for meta stories to distract from it. It's pretty boring. Can be effective. We have to counteract it. I guess that's one of the reasons you're hearing from me today.
That's true. And you know, as the system evolves, and now with the Trump administration, there have been articles written that your lawyers may try to seek pardon from him. Is that true?
There has been no attempt to seek a pardon. We predicted that Trump wouldn't win, just like everyone else, because Hillary Clinton had unified the establishments and they had enormous resources. But a very interesting phenomena occurred. That is, the U.S. media, in gunning on behalf of Hillary Clinton so strongly, produced many social phobias, where it became a taboo to criticize Hillary Clinton, and a taboo to admit support for Donald Trump. And so as a result...
but it's no longer a taboo if you think about it, because she's
pollsters
kind of...
were not able to admit.
Right.
So people felt that they could not admit to pollsters their genuine feelings about who they were going to vote for and how much they wanted to vote for them. So the polls had Trump, as I'm sure everyone is aware of, had Trump losing.
Yes.
Now, I saw that phenomena in Brexit as well. And
but now that
US
Trump...
US pollsters said that they were taking the effect into account. Now, clearly, they were not taking it properly into account, A. And B, I believe the conformity pressures were much stronger in the United States than they were under Brexit. That you were a deplorable, irredeemable person if you didn't like Hillary Clinton. So as a result, the polling was low for Trump. So the establishments gathered around Hillary Clinton did not release their reserve capacities in terms of their resources. They ended up pushing $1 billion to Hillary Clinton's campaign. They could have pushed $10 billion to Hillary Clinton's campaign if they thought that it was necessary to do so. But why spend the money if it's not necessary? And the determination as to whether it is necessary or not was the polling. The conformity that they set up is what ended up leading to their own undoing, because the conformity affected the polling, and they read the polls as well, and so they didn't put in the resources that were necessary to defeat Donald Trump.
You talk about establishment and the establishment surrounding Hillary Clinton. Do you think it's going to be, and then I want to get to an audience question after this one. Yeah. Do you think that there will be a different establishment now that Trump is going to be president?
It'll be a small shockwave for the establishment, and there will be some cracks that will appear in it. But let's be realistic. The United States is a very big society with 320 million people. Many large companies. The US government has always represented the organized groups in the United States, principally American corporations, and it will continue to do so.
So it's very much the same thing, just a different leader taking on?
I mean, in some areas there will be differences, but if we're talking about the overall behavior of, say, the CIA or the US military or
Right.
US embassies and what they do in supporting US companies trying to sell Boeing to everyone, it's going to be more or less the same.
Can we get an
But
audience question?
at the margins, there can be significant differences. For example, in Syria policy, there will be significant differences.
Can we get the microphone passing and try to get it to somebody in the back as well, please?
Hello, hi. My name is Talar, and I'm a counterterrorism and security specialist. And my question is basically that, Mr. Assange, that some might think of you as an online vigilante. And the idea is nowadays a lot of things are happening in the world that are taking it towards cyber war and cyber warfare. And do you think that WikiLeaks can be used as a tool for cyber warfare between states or even the parties within each other's same country? Thank you.
Well, I mean, can the internet be used as a tool to publish information? Yes. Can any newspaper be used as a tool to publish information? Yes. Does the New York Times and the Washington Post lend itself to the activities of US intelligence agencies in revealing information that they want to reveal for their own institutional ambitions or to reveal soft threats against other states or other actors? Yes. Is WikiLeaks particularly useful for intelligence agencies in that way? The answer is no. We publish true information. We publish pristine archives of information. We don't just publish the angle that our sources want to be published. Every angle is there. And I mean, for example, in the Podesta emails that we published, if the allegation is that our sources are Russian, and that's false, we've stated repeatedly it's false. But if you believe that allegation, there's a lot of material in there about various parts of the DC establishment, including the Podestas themselves, and their dealings with Russia.
We're almost out of time, so we've been getting a lot of tweets, I'm sure, as you can believe, during this live session. And people keep asking Mr. Assange about the PGP keys and the passwords. Can we get a comment on those? And then one more question.
I'm not sure what passwords are being referred to.
They want to know if it's authentic, what's going on, the PGP signatures.
Look, there's a lot of people not very informed about computer security making claims. PGP keys don't prove anything, except that the person who has control over the key has control over the key. So if the question is, does someone using a WikiLeaks PGP key say anything at all, what it says is that person has control over that key, but nothing else. And the concern amongst some people, is that because of my lack of visibility,
Yes.
that WikiLeaks has been taken over by
The
US
CIA,
intelligence,
they said.
et cetera, which is false.
It's false.
It's an understandable concern if you're not looking at the details about who has been visiting me, but it's an understandable concern because similar things have happened in the past to other prominent anonymous figures, such as a person called Sabu, who started working for the FBI. But if you look at that Sabu case, it wouldn't have made any difference because that guy was actually working for the FBI. It's the same guy. So in the cases of PGP keys, all they do is say that whoever controls the key, which is not the problem here.
WikiLeaks is still very much in control of your team, is what you're saying. It's not.
My team is fully in control and is fully loyal to me.
All right. Just to end on this conference is called Free Connected Minds. It's part of the May Chidiac Foundation, and it's about the freedom of press, freedom of speech. As we can see in your case, WikiLeaks entering its 10th year now, it started in 2006, freedom comes at a very high cost. When you look back, and I'm not talking about regrets specifically, but when you look back today, is there anything you would have done differently? And if so, what?
Yes, I've become a lot less willing to compromise as time has gone by. I was viewed as being someone who would stick to their principles at all costs, but I think that's much more so now. I mean, I put it this way. We worked with many newspapers. We ended up banning many newspapers from working with us for periods of time. New York Times we banned, The Guardian we banned, because of how they redacted or refused to publish certain stories that they felt was not in their interest to publish, although it was very clear to us that those were newsworthy stories that their readers wanted to see. And they also engaged in the reductions of many cables, removing particular elements. For example, that Yulia Tymoshenko hid her wealth in London, the Guardian redacted, or that an Italian energy company, Eni, was involved, said to be involved in corruption in Kazakhstan, or that the Kazakhstani elite in general were corrupt. The Guardian removed all that. So Guardian, Le Monde, New York Times, all involved in that kind of political censorship. And we delegated redaction decisions to those newspapers initially, because it just was more efficient to have the journalists who were writing the stories themselves to determine what should be redacted, because they had researched the players involved, etc. And there's so much material to get through that we needed to produce a system that worked at scale, and the only way to do that was
and there was that whole harmonization process that people kept going about, right? And so
which was to delegate,
right?
But the result of that, if you open the window for people to make opaque censorship decisions, they will immediately exploit it for something else. Immediately. So although we had agreements with them that they would only redact in the cases for people at risk of facing unlawful retribution for reprisals and at serious risk of that, they immediely used it for other reasons. So
trust no one, basically.
As a result, we started to look at the rhetoric of these organizations in a very different way, and that most of their liberal rhetoric concerning that they're responsible to who? Actually, if you look at the behavior, it's responsible, of course it is, to the various establishments that they want to curry favor with, to their social networks, to the aims of their proprietor, etc. That's what they mean by responsible. And it is mostly a fiction in practice. So I became very hard line on enforcing our contracts, and that any media organization that we're working with who breaks our contracts and who abuses those principles to censor for political purposes is out. So I would have done that earlier on.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Julian Assange's story is one for the books. It is the story of the incurable quest for truth, no matter the consequences in the digital age we live in. This is all the time we have now. Thank you so much for joining us live from London, in Beirut, Mr. Julian Assange, the founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. And this brings our session to an end. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
All my best for
We
Lebanon.
hope to see
Bye.
you soon on the balcony or elsewhere, hopefully. Can you please say, they're saying just one last word about Lebanon, one last comment?
In general, about Lebanon.
A general statement about Lebanon, yes.
Well,
Mrs. May Chidiac herself is
Lebanon,
asking.
Lebanon is a wonderful place. It is so rich politically and culturally, despite it being of a very small size. And it's amazing that the Lebanese people have managed to preserve themselves despite all the very difficult neighbors they have, from Israel to Syria, now having to deal with ISIS, etc. So I have a lot of respect for the creativity and perseverance of the Lebanese people. I have many Lebanese friends. We've worked with Lebanese papers and Lebanese TV stations also to produce some great journalism. So I'm a big fan of Lebanon.
Just wait, one more. I know there's never enough time for this. Miss May Chidiac herself, the founder of this foundation, is asking, they're saying that the news used some of the different content that WikiLeaks has, misused it as well, in order to attract attention. Is there any comment on that? And to accuse you as well. Oh, accuse Lebanon.
I would have to take time to go back to the details of that case. There are many fascinating Lebanese cables that we have published. My favorite one is actually about the nature of the state. There's a series of 3 cables. I referenced them in my book, When Google Met WikiLeaks. And they're about Hezbollah's embryonic optical fiber network. Sorry, I'm incorrect. They're in cypherpunks. 07 Beirut 301, 05 Beirut 490, 05 Beirut 505, 05 Beirut 523. Sorry, there's 4. And
These are encrypted messages, or?
They're cables. So if you just
Okay.
search for those, you'll find, if you just even Google search, you'll find those. Cables that we have published that speak about Hezbollah's telecommunications network that it was laying, and the complaints by the then Lebanese government to the US ambassador about that. And the then Lebanese government had also passed that information on to Israel, those maps, etc. Maybe they hoped that Israel would bug it or bomb it. But it's about the nature of a state. And I started reflecting on that. One of the cables speaks about how, one of the diplomatic cables speaks about how this fiber optic cable of Hezbollah's had been laid, including along the top of the embassy wall of the French embassy.
Yeah.
Interesting place to put it. If that was true, you have to question maybe the French were trying to tap it, and that's why they put it along. The French moved it to along that wall, or Hezbollah put it there because then Lebanese government couldn't get to it. But to have an independent people, you need control of freedom of movement, control of telecommunications, and control of economic interaction. These are 3 basic freedoms. So Hezbollah, in that sense, was becoming a state of southern Lebanon.
Right, because with
Because
Hezbollah,
it had control of physical movement, practical on the street physical control, its own telecommunications network, and its own means of engaging in economic interactions without being shut down. So that is the definition of a state. So at that time, Hezbollah, in its areas, was moving towards being an independent state. I'm not sure what the view is in Lebanon now as to whether it is still that way, now that it has been pulled into the government in various ways. It seems like a wise decision if you're dealing with a group that is moving towards statehood to pull it into the government to discourage that tendency.
It's definitely one to keep an eye on right now. But you said you weren't receiving a lot of Lebanese leaks generally.
No, we got a couple of things about the investigation into the assassination of your former
Of Rafiq Hariri, right, the former Prime Minister.
And we published the budgets for that and a few other things. But not a lot direct from Lebanon, but many about Lebanon.
Well, keep us posted, and thank you so much for being with us today. Hopefully this has satisfied a few people. I know it's all relative, and people will always have questions, but thank you so much, Mr. Assange, for taking part in this very important conversation on freedom of speech, what had been going on with the U.S. elections, a little bit about the Arab world, your identity, and we hope to be able to see you very soon, and hopefully eventually get to ask more questions. There is never enough time for these kinds of questions. And this wraps up our session for today. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you.